So at Hedera and the HBAR Foundation, we're really excited about the refi space, and we're really excited about solving some of the traditional challenges that we see both on the supply side as well as making these assets that we're creating accessible to buyers who are really big emitters, and have some key challenges around auditability and granularity for accounting, whether it's emissions that they're accounting for or being able to prove the impact of where they're putting their dollars is actually driving outcomes that aren't tied to double spending, where they can actually get access to the data that's going on the ground, that's granular down to the different roles and actors. That's really what we're focused on, and building that ecosystem on Hedera. For those who aren't familiar with Hedera, I'm just going to do like a 2-second overview. But basically, we can do tens of thousands of transactions a second with finality and extremely low fees. So when we want to log data, we can do that for a hundredth of a penny. We want to transfer a token, it's a tenth of a penny, and we can do that fairly, meaning anyone can submit to any node. They can get a fair timestamp. They can get a state proof with that. They can get a fair order on that timestamp, and they pay the same fair fee for every single transaction. So when we submit any information to the network, we are always trying to drive it from a sensor-based system through this measurable, reportable, and verifiable process in an open source tool we have called the Guardian. And what you can think of from the Guardian perspective is it's a system that allows you to map all the methodologies that you're building, define the roles, and allow folks with decentralized identifiers to plug in those roles so they can mint a token that has a link back to every single auditable attribute through retirement, so we can get to a compliance report that has every single linked point of data and how that trust system was built. So if we have a sensor, whether it's a satellite, an inverter in the case of a solar panel, or a meter in the case of a solar panel, or a soil-based sensor, or any other type of manual input, we can basically take a system of DIDs, or decentralized identifiers, and verifiable credentials tied to them, and put together links all the way back to that root authority or a registry, whether it's a traditional registry or a new type of registry that's being built to implement processes that have scientific veracity, and we can get attestations on top of them. So you can bring attestations to the table on the veracity of the policy. The folks who've implemented it, maybe taking technical tools like formal verification against the specification that's around that policy, so you can prove when a sensor is a role type that it's been credentialed, installed the right way, it's on the right firmware version, or it's being done with the right manual collection points with folks who are trained to collect data properly, and maybe even compare it against satellite imagery. And the Guardian's able to take that, process it, and turn what sometimes in traditional markets like Vera is a 400-page process into a fully auditable representation that is measurable down to the metric ton. And we link that with a tool called a verifiable presentation. And so in our markets, we take these projects from the supply side, and we map them to how the roles and actors on the demand side, or different stakeholders, whether they're government institutions or auditors, what they want to see so that they can prove things like nationally determined contributions, state or city level emissions or offset projects that are impacting local methodology. We built that on Hedera on our audit layer called our consensus service, where we map all the identities inside the Guardian against those methodologies, and we use our token service as the native capability to measure the state or the balance of these assets, whether they're emissions, offsets, RECs, or any other type of sustainability asset. And of course, they map to measurable policies with all these digital signatures for devices, systems, and people that can be linked to the tokens held in wallets on Hedera and traded in new types of marketplaces that can actually trade assets that are unique to the metric ton. And what that really looks like is a series of different types of assets that are being built today. So we have large emission reduction platforms in places like Kenya. We've had other projects that are doing emissions measurement in Australia, things like green hydrogen sites where they're going to actually be producing credits that are sometimes insets, sometimes offsets. We have folks who are even building water specifications for water rights trading for permission to utilize certain amounts of water. And we're backing all this up through our $100 million+ sustainable impact fund. And so one of the things that we're thinking about is not just building open source DMRV platforms that anyone can use, anyone can adopt to define the methodologies, but also giving folks access to funding so they can follow up on open source infrastructure that our community is building, making sure that these assets are fully auditable first, discoverable to specific metadata attributes like additionality, durability, leakage. Does the project have the right validation and verification body that we trust as a community, or as maybe buyers want to buy from? And we enable that to work on top of Hedera in a way that is completely auditable. So just to talk about one quick project and being conscious of time, one of our first grantees was Dovu, who's doing a soil-based project. And what they're doing is they're using this Guardian-based system to identify all the roles and actors and calculating small farms that are oftentimes in Europe or the UK, hundreds of acres, but they can get down to a much smaller size as well. And they're taking these baselines that they're doing of what the current depleted state of carbon in the soil is, and they're helping farmers improve that depleted state to generate additional carbon capture. And what they're doing is they're taking that, logging it on Hedera, they're linking that in the memo field of token down to the metric ton in what they call a dynamic NFT, and they're putting that on the marketplace. And to date, they're selling about $35 a metric ton. They started at 20, and they've sold out all the farms thus far, but looking to scale much further. And so as they go through that process, they take the definition of a dynamic NFT and they make it discoverable so we know all the attributes of who's calculated it, who's involved in the process, what attestations do they have. And they allow people to interrogate the real world data and the entire audit trail, all linked on Ledger, all on top of Hedera, where they're paying the penny of a penny or hundredth of a cent to get to that audit log and minting those tokens with the full verifiable link and understandable methodology. And so, we're happy to engage with a lot of different folks in the ecosystem. For folks who are looking for funding, please feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in building on top of Hedera. If you're interested in getting engaged with the Guardian, we have the GitHub repo out there and very straightforward getting started docs. And as part of it, we also have a weekly community tech call where we can engage, answer questions as an open community, and we just invite folks to reach out and chat with us to see how we can work together. We're really excited about this space and I appreciate being here.
Thanks so much, Wes. This is great, man. Just one super quick question. Do you know the minimum acreage that you need for Dovu to onboard?
So the goal for us is always to be able to scale upwards and downwards. We've talked things as low as a couple acres, but we don't have folks who put that in practice yet. I think some of the things that we are super excited about is there's new soil sensors that are out there that we're interested in testing. There's one that came out from IIT that we're excited to try to get our hands on. And
cool, man.
That's really, I think the big opportunity is to scale downward for everyone to become part of the process.